Welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 98. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by Academic Officers Megan Lengyel, Nicole O'Connor, and Tony Guzzaldo. Our conversation gives us a chance to reflect on the growth of the online program throughout the years, and to look forward to the constant improvement and renewal that is needed in a Catholic organization. We hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, liturgical musician, popcorn and podcast fanatic, and Kolbe homeschooling mom to 4 lads and lasses of middle and high school age.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Last week, we visited with the deans who serve Kolbe families and marveled at the growth that Kolbe has experienced in recent years. Today, we welcome back a couple of recurring cast members, as it were, Mrs. Megan Lengyel, Kolbe's Chief Academic Officer, who's been around from the get-go of the Online Academy in 2013, before that actually, with those 15 teachers and 139 high schoolers we mentioned, and Mrs. Nicole O'Connor, longtime online instructor and founding director of the Online Elementary Program. Hello, you two.
Hi. Hi, Bonnie. Thanks for having us.
It's great to see you guys back. Thanks for coming. In the show notes for this episode, we will link the episodes Megan and Nicole have graced before. It's my joy to welcome a new cast member, Mr. Tony Guzzaldo, who has been serving Kolbe families as an academic advisor and online instructor this school year and was recently appointed the new director of the 6th through 12th grade online program. Welcome to the Kolbecast.
Thank you.
It's great to meet you.
You as well.
Oh, thank you. Would you pretend it's Meet the Teacher Night and tell us about yourself?
Ooh, Meet the Teacher Night. So how do I describe myself? I guess I'll start with the personal. I am married happily. Will be married 15 years this September. I've got 2 kids, 2 girls, a 10 and a 5. I am a convert, and I was received into the church at Easter 2017. Currently attend Christ the Teacher Parish in DeKalb, and shout out to Father Mano and Father Canella, 2 great priests. My professional background is mostly in education, so I've been working in some capacity in education for roughly 20 years. I started out working as a paraprofessional after I graduated from college, and then I also was in the Air National Guard and was a trainer for my unit. Eventually, teaching license and taught in public school for 5 years. From there, I moved on to working in higher education. So I worked at doing program review and assessment at a community college, and then moved on to university and did similar work with assessment and satisfaction surveying and data and things like that. And then at the same time, I earned an instructional technology master's degree. So that's kind of like where I came from before I got to Kolbe.
Wow. Okay. And how did you happen upon Kolbe then?
Oh, that's a fun story too. So I started out actually working, or I should say volunteering, on the Education Commission for my daughter's brick and mortar Catholic school. And the school was having some enrollment trouble, and so we were doing some research to try to figure out how to revive the school. And since I was a convert and also worked in education, question for me was, what does a proper Catholic education look like? So I started doing research on that. I eventually discovered the Cardinal Newman Society, eventually discovered Kolbe Academy, and what I found was a place that was integrating perfectly sort of what I understood to be true, or came to understand to be true, about a proper Catholic education, but that also something that matched my philosophy of teaching, pedagogy, and then also what I would say is an effective use of instructional technology. So I became kind of a fan before I ever thought of, participating or joining the Kolbe world. And I guess from there, just as the pandemic was getting ready to kick off, and I had been thinking about, like, not just Kolbe as a benchmark against which I could help move my daughter's school, but maybe my daughter be a Kolbe student, except she was too young at the time. And then I got an email that said Kolbe was launching a new K-5 program, and that kind of got the ball rolling on my journey to where I am now.
Nice. Okay. Has anything surprised you about Kolbe since you started here?
Oh Man, I want to say yes and no. So
Hmm.
I think it's like it's been an experience where what I suspected about Kolbe turned out to be true. So all the things I mentioned before, Catholic education done properly, mission focus, infusing the full curriculum with our faith and our view of things. So not just a secular education with a religion course added on, but a learning environment where every experience the student has is infused with the faith. That has not been surprising, I guess. But maybe some things that have been surprising is just how much community and friendship can actually be fostered in an online environment, both for students and for teachers and staff. I am obviously not a skeptic of technology in education, or I wouldn't have come here and I wouldn't have gotten the education that I did myself. I knew it could be an effective way to teach people and for people to learn, but I didn't experience the community aspect myself, and I've built virtuous friendships with people that I have not yet met in person. And I've seen community build among students in ways that I didn't anticipate, students who have not met each other in person. And that's been a wonderful thing to see. And I'll also say one thing that's been surprising to me, one of those things that I don't think you can discover until you experience it, is just how absolutely gratifying it is for your profession to serve the mission of the church. And because Kolbe is so committed to mission, and Kolbe's mission is in service of the church, this last year of working here has been gratifying in ways that I don't think I fully have grasped yet myself. It's still very much surreal.
Those gifts are just awesome to behold. That when we come to recognize them, it's just humbling.
Yeah, I would say humbling is the right word. That is the overwhelming sense I have is just I'm humbled to be a part of it.
So, Megan, I've recited some stats you sent out, going from 15 teachers and 139 ninth through 12th graders in the first year of the online academy in 2013 to now more than 70 teachers and 1,000 online students in grades K through 12. What a ride!
It really has been a ride. And I think one of the things I did not expect this year is for our enrollment in the online school to stay at the same level as last year.
Hmm.
Last year was the COVID, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
this year there was certainly some COVID protocols that had people still coming to homeschooling or online schooling instead of maybe their in-person option. But I have just been, I don't know, floored by how many people just loved what they saw when they were here last year and wanted to stay.
Yeah.
And enrollment just kicked off a couple weeks ago for next year. We're all sitting there nervous, like, well, what's going to happen? And I mean, I was closing sections by the afternoon that enrollment opened
Wow.
of classes. There's a couple classes that always fill up really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dr. Alman's art class, Mrs. Powers' geometry class. Like there's a couple of teachers that have been with us for a long time and they just have kind of that loyal following from siblings and that sort of thing. So
Right.
those are always expected, but I did not expect to be closing seventh grade English sections, seventh grade religion sections by, the afternoon of the first day of enrollment opening. So it was exciting to be a part of this year. So I expect that we're going to be at the same level of students this year, maybe even growing next year. We'll see. I always kind of just wait with bated breath and know it's in God's hands. And it's been unique for me this year. This is the first year I've had children in the online school. And it's been a really great experience to be on the parent side. I think it's helped quite a bit with, finding little nuanced things that need to be tweaked here and there. We've been doing this for a long time. We've got a lot of the ins and outs of best practices for online schooling, but being me on the parent side too is just helping us even refine it even more.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to, have Tony give his background and if you know me, you know that Tony is going to be a really great addition to the online school, just with his design background and just general love for the mission. And I'm really excited to have him on board. With all this growth that we've had, it has become necessary for us to hire a few more administrators to help us with the number of students. with an increased number of students, there's an increased number of behavioral issues here and there. Kolbe students are awesome. There's very few behavioral issues, but they still come out. And so we've actually gone to this new dean model, which, you all have already listened to the dean episode, it sounds like, where we have a dean dedicated to 9 through 12, 1 through 6 to 6 through 8, and 1 through K to 5. So that'll kind of be fully in place for the 22-23 school year. It's a mouthful. And then additionally, having kind of Nicole on her part for the 6 through 12, and that's where Tony's role comes into play here. So he'll be overseeing the department chairs directly, which is a job I've been doing for the last 9 years. And that will free me up to work on more like high level things, strategic things that Kolbe Academy is doing. And we're still kind of figuring out what things, he'll be taking over, what things will still kind of stay in my purview. And I'm sure we won't have all of that figured out for at least a year. And he's been great, just willing to learn anything that I want to teach him, and doing a great job with it. Many of you may or may not be aware that the way that our 6 through 12 program is organized is that we have a department chair for each subject area. So theology, literature and English, history, math, science, and foreign language. So next year, we will have 4 new department chairs, which is very exciting. A little scary, but I'm one of those people that embraces change. I think change always brings great new opportunities. So I'm very excited about it. Some of our department chairs are retiring from Kolbe. Other department chairs are moving into different roles or just stepping back a little bit. So those new department chairs are in the math department. We have Mr. Wes Stratman. So he was actually hired this past year. He's a first-year teacher. So very exciting to have a first-year teacher moving into a department chair role. He's been wonderful, and I'm sure some of the students have had him in geometry or algebra 2. And then in our science department, we have Katie Bradley moving into the department chair role. And this year she, again, also a first-year teacher, but she's teaching biology and life science, and then she's also our biology lab teacher. So she'll continue to teach, and as will Wes, they'll still continue to teach. They won't have quite as full of a teaching load as they may have had this year. And then our history department, we have Mrs. Therese Prudlow moving into the history department chair position. Now, Therese has been with us for, I think, 6 years. She's, almost all the students have had Mrs. Prudlow because she has taught in middle school and she's taught in high school, and she's just wonderful.
Yes.
And then our theology department. So our theology department will have Mr. Nick Sens moving into the department chair role starting next year. And we're really excited about him. So lots of change, but, like I said, I think change is a good thing. It'll brings new opportunities, and Tony will have 4 newbies underneath him, but two people that will show him the ropes. So
yeah, it's exciting. Wow, there's a lot of newness happening, new growth. That's exciting. So we've had some of those on the Kolbecast, but now we're going to need to meet in person. We've had Mrs. Prudlow, Mr. Sens, Mrs. Bradley all on the Kolbecast before. I'll link all those episodes so people can hear them, get to know them a little bit. But now I'll be looking at Mr. Stratman.
Yeah, maybe you'll have to have a department chair podcast of some kind. That would be a party, just FYI.
Yeah, those are fun. We like doing those, having everybody together.
I have to get Megan to say that I hope this doesn't mean that my son no longer has Mr. Sens for 11th grade theology, which he's very much looking forward to. But
no, he'll continue teaching his 11th grade theology classes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So with the online director role, as you've put it, like a vice principal role, for those of us who are a little fuzzy on what sorts of things that might mean, especially if we've been homeschooling for a while and we're kind of out of the brick and mortar school scene, what sorts of things might that entail for you? In addition, department chair things, but I'll just get out of the way now.
No worries. I think I see the role somewhat as a bridge between Kolbe's leadership and then I would say like frontline teachers. And of course, department chairs are also a sort of a liaison between those two elements. But I kind of have a couple different things that I think I'm responsible for. And one of them is to help Kolbe leadership implement its vision for the school, and to kind of guide the direction of the school. So that would be going from leadership and then through department chairs to teaching what actually gets implemented in classrooms. And then I think the other job of mine is to advocate for teachers and for what teachers are seeing in classrooms, and to be able to inform leadership of the effects of policies and how effective those policies are, and kind of like I guess serve as a bridge between those two elements.
Okay.
And I think that's part of why I think Megan picked me for this role is because I've had experience with kind of both ends of that. So I've been on the teacher side of things. I've got a lot of experience on that front line, as I would say. This is my first administrative role, but when I was working in schools, I took a variety of leadership positions on committees and whatnot, where I was responsible for helping the administration lead teachers in a direction and implement new program initiatives and policies. So I've kind of been able to see both sides of that. And I think that's it's an important role, and I'm excited that even if I weren't the one to get the role, I'm glad that Kolbe has it, because I think it's a very important position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with having gone through some organizations that are growing, it just becomes when you're small with us. Well, let's step back with the wonderful growth that Kolbe has seen. You could just intuitively know you've got to kind of in any organization, communication is super important. But as you get bigger and bigger, that gets harder, right? If you're just talking about the number of teachers that you've expanded, um, you can't. It's not easy just to have a little get together meeting at that size and be able to communicate in the same way that you could 10, 12 years ago. So you can just see that in order to keep that connection to the students, you need people who are kind of shrinking that communication and condensing it a little bit, but making sure that it's going through. Otherwise, you can't have that one-on-one relationship with as many people as you keep getting bigger. So I'm really excited to have Tony join join in this role. This is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think, over the last 2 to 3 years, with all the growth that we've had, I find myself having less and less time to do some of the more nitty-gritty things that I want to do for the 6 through 12 students. Just getting the memo out every week can sometimes, I'm doing it on Friday. I want to spend more time on it, but we need more hands, right? And it was hard to almost get convinced that we needed this position, because I don't want to relinquish control of anything, but at the end of the day, like, if we're going to do things right for our students, we need more people helping. We need more people to do some of the heavy lifting,
Sure.
or things just don't get done. So
Sure. To sustain it.
It reminds me of like Stephen Covey's Habits of Highly Effective People, where you've got that grid of, I think this was from prior to him, but important things and urgent things, and you've got the four quadrants. But as you keep getting more and more, all of your stuff is moving to important, urgent stuff, and all of that important but not urgent stuff, just there's no time for that, and that should
exactly.
allow you to spend the time there in that quadrant. But
Yeah.
I would add one thing to what I think this role brings to Kolbe. Um, I think I'm going to be able to make it so that Megan can take a full day off. And Megan works
Oh, okay,
extremely hard.
good.
And
Yes, she
that is one of
does.
my goals, to make it so that she can take a day off without worrying about what's happening at Kolbe.
Hey, Mom, are you listening to that? Okay.
Excellent. That's so true. Well, it's not surprising to see the way you guys have responded to the needs and opportunities that have come along with this growth, and in order to sustain it and help the school flourish and all the students enrolled in the school flourish as well. One of the hallmarks of the Kolbe curriculum is the integration across the subject areas, covering concepts in history, theology, and literature, among others, to help students assimilate what they're learning and think deeply, critically, that oft used word, about the material, the world around them, their places in the world, things like that. This takes a lot of coordination and effort. So let's talk about the ways Kolbe teachers are formed and supported in this endeavor, especially around keeping our Catholic faith at the center of everything, which is evident from hearing you guys talk about how you've approached these needs on the administrative side. So let's talk about that on the teacher side, and how that then relates to the curriculum and the students and their experience.
Well, I think I would start with the hiring process.
Okay.
And you have to have the right people to do this job, right? To be a teacher of a Kolbe student, to help perpetuate the mission, propagate the mission. And so the hiring process becomes something that's so important. And sometimes I go, oh my gosh, we have so many steps to the hiring process. But it really does. It just makes it so important for our department chairs, for Tony going into this next year, and for myself to get to know these applicants. How seriously do they take their faith? How do they apply it? How can they bring it into the classroom? And so I don't know, Tony, you were coming up with some really good interview questions. Not that you want to give them away on air, but I think there was the one that I thought, I think it was actually Therese Prudlow that threw it out there, and you kind of turned it around a little bit. Do you remember the exact question? Something about the incarnation.
Right. How does something along the lines of how does the fact of of the incarnation influence your approach to teaching history?
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I mean, there's ways for us to really get to the core of the applicant to see if they are a mission fit. So I say all that because I think, you got to hire the right people into those positions first, right? And then from there, once they become employees and they're actually on our faculty, then we want to help grow them, right? Not only in online teaching, but also spiritually. So we offer 4 in-services every year, and the one that we have during Lent, I usually try to bring in a speaker of some sort that addresses a spiritual topic of some kind. So actually, Nicole, she is the one that hooked us up with this last one. Do you want to tell a little bit about him? Because I know you know his background backwards and forwards.
Sure. Yeah, I was really excited because I was able to connect with a friend who was a priest at Franciscan University when I was there, Father Rick Martignetti. And he, just a beautiful, humble priest. I always enjoyed hearing him speak. And he gave this wonderful meditation for us on the wounds of Christ. And one thing that really struck me about what he gave to us as online teachers was he talked about the ministry of touch, and how, when someone's dying or when you need to comfort someone, often we talk, we feel like we need to talk or say something, and how that's really focused on us. But how when Christ ministered to people, he just reached out his hand and he offered this. And I know as online teachers, a lot of us feel like we want to do, we want to connect with our students on that next level and just be there for them. And so strategizing ways, we had department meetings after this beautiful meditation, and we had such a fruitful discussion of, okay, so what does that look like as a virtual teacher? How can we still be there for our students, know that we're supporting them in their mission of growing closer to Christ in their journey as a human person? And I think it really goes into how we approach our subjects and how we approach what we're leading them towards. As Tony said with his question, talking about the incarnation, how does it inform your teaching? Well, how does your relationship with Christ and your ministry as a teacher, how does that inform your teaching in every subject? So it was beautiful. And I also got to see an old friend, so that was really nice.
And I just want to piggyback off of what Nicole was saying about the infusion of faith in like subject areas or whatever. Just that we see each of our subject areas as having an important role in a student's formation. So if our primary mission is to form students in the Catholic faith, each of the subject areas has a role to play in that. And I think that we orient our how we approach pedagogy and content and all of those kinds of things towards that end. And also, as Megan was saying earlier, we hire according to that as well. So it's something we want to know. What approach do our teachers take in light of that responsibility to forming kids, and what role does their field play in that process?
What is evident on our end?
We have such a talented group of teachers. We have so many experts in. I think that's another piece that's been so beautiful. I know even, aside from our in-services and the retreats and things that we put together on the administrative side, within every department, there seems to be little pockets of beauty that are able to be shared. For example, last year, Michelle Kim, who I know you spoke with recently, she was on a previous episode about her involvement with Catechesis of the Good Shepherd.
Yeah.
When she taught for elementary, she did this beautiful professional development for the department on how you can take the principles of CGS and that godly play and that hands-on experience and tie it into an elementary virtual classroom. So one really beautiful thing that she brought to our department, which everyone still does, is we have a prayer layout. So if you're familiar with Adobe, all you Kolbe families, there's different layouts that teachers can use to switch kind of from room to room. And she really invited the teachers to make the prayer space a very inviting and holy space where you enter, you switch layouts. So you're physically going in to say your prayer before class starts. And there's a candle video that like flickers like a real candle and Gregorian chants. And there's this beautiful image of the crucifix. And so it's just that little change the entire tone of the entire class and the opportunity to invite students into prayer. So, that's something that all of our teachers benefited from. And it was just, her experience and her expertise and her faithfulness that really brought that to the online school. So that was a really beautiful, beautiful thing last year.
And I think that reminds me of earlier when you were asking me what has surprised me since I've been at Kolbe. Um, in my career, I've encountered really talented people and really great people. And what's been amazing at Kolbe is that's all we have is really great, faithful people who are talented and creative. And every single person that I interact with, I'm so impressed with. And I've never been a part of an institution that's like practically universally staffed by such quality people.
Well, I can echo that. That's been my experience in meeting several of the folks along the way recording these episodes. I've come to expect it. Like this is how the Kolbe folks are. And we've heard from a lot of Kolbe teachers on previous episodes or in the course of preparing for this episodes, how grateful they are for the training and the mentorship and the formation that they receive when they come on board. It really means a lot to them and they get so much out of it and then give so much as a result. But you can see the camaraderie and everything that you pour into helping people who serve Kolbe in these roles grow as people and in their lives of faith. Can you tell us a bit about that and how you help them integrate the faith into all the subjects that they teach?
Sure. I'll talk a little bit about how we approach that in K through 5. So as you know, K through 5 is a different program than 6 through 12 in that it's a whole program. You don't just sign up for one class, you sign up for all the classes. And that's very intentional for the age. Because one beauty of elementary in a brick and mortar school is you're all in one classroom with your teacher all day. And so if your teacher wants to bring back what you were talking about in religion to your history lesson for the day, it's very natural and easy to do that. And so that's what we seek to do. We start our week with religion. And I loved what Tony said. It's not just a religion class and then all your other subjects. Like we don't just focus on, okay, we teach religion and everything else. It's everything is tied to salvation history and their place in the world and their mission as a child of God. And so that comes up in every subject, even science. Our teachers have this awesome science book with Catholic scientists and how their faith has inspired their inventions and creations. And so really first on the first level, making sure I understand the philosophy behind each subject. So I know Therese Prudlow has beautiful things to say about the philosophy of history and the incarnation and the connection and all of that. And so those little pieces of how do we approach literature? Well, we seek truth, beauty, and goodness in everything we read, and we select our novels accordingly. And how do we approach science? Well, we're marveling at God's creation and we're trying to understand, the design behind it. And so on the foundational level, making sure the teachers understand that we all have a shared view of what that will be. And then on more the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts of it is making sure that when there are opportunities to integrate subjects, we do that. So if they have a writing assignment, we don't just pick a random writing topic for them to write it out because they're learning how to write a narrative. We look at, well, what are they learning in theology, religion? What are they learning in history? And how can we really teach them to marvel at that and use their writing skills to express this truth, beauty, and goodness. So I know those are kind of buzzwords in classical education, truth, beauty, goodness. That's like the big thing, but it's true. It's the core of everything. And And when you do that, the subjects just naturally integrate themselves to the faith, because in every study, you're seeking truth. And that's one of my favorite parts about working for Kolbe, working with teachers at Kolbe, is we all understand and agree with that. And so we're all working towards that, and revealing that for our students.
I'm impressed with Kolbe's teachers in particular, since I'm relatively new to Kolbe, but I get to meet some of them. And, my background at Thomas Aquinas College meant that our conversations about God and our faith were often extremely intellectual. And so we would tend away from that, talking about our own relationship with God and God as a person. And so I kind of got used to that. But coming into Kolbe, they've got these great intellectual minds here. These teachers that I've talked to, they're thinking very critically, but they're very open about their relationship and their love of our Lord, and their desire to share that with other people and other students, or their students, and just other people. And just that balance is really remarkable to me, and it's not common. So it's really impressive.
I have to agree with Steve about almost how the faculty humbles me and helps me to grow in my own faith, because they are so not only academically understanding their faith, but showing that love for our Lord in a very personal way, and bringing that. So in bringing it to the students, they also bring it up to us in the administration. So it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Okay, so this has been inspiring to hear about all that you pour into the formation of the Kolbe teachers. We certainly see the results of that here on our end as parents and families and students. Let's talk more about how we as parents and families can partner with you on the administration side of things. What can we do on our end?
Yeah, I mean, this might seem a little cliche, but fill out the surveys, please. And leave us comments, like tell us why you selected the answer you did. We read every single comment that comes through. We look at everything in depth, and we send those surveys out twice a year. So at the end of first semester, because we started realizing, like, let's send these out in the middle of the year because we can catch some things and fix them before the end of the year. And then again at the end of the year. And we use those things to zone in on certain items for professional development, for big changes in our program, little changes in our program, trying to just really make the best experience for all of our students. So that, to be honest, that's probably the number one way parents can really affect change in the online program.
Okay.
I would just add that positive feedback, particularly for individual instructors, is incredibly life-giving for teachers. So when we see a teacher being praised for something that they've done well, or that they've reached a student or something like that, we make sure that teacher hears that feedback. And it's always, always, always like a life-giving thing for them.
Yeah, sure.
When you nominate one of your teachers for Teacher of the Month, they receive that nomination and any comments you give them. So even if they aren't chosen for Teacher of the Month that particular month, they still receive all of those, all of that positive feedback. So, don't be shy in nominating somebody, even if you think, oh, they only teach one class, they'll never get it. But, Mr. Guzzaldo will still get your positive feedback if you fill that out about him.
Okay, good to know.
Funny enough, my first interaction with Tony was through a survey. So his daughter was in the online school, and he was so generous and filled out a survey the first year. And being a history teacher, which I didn't know at the time, he was saying, I love the program. There's so much I love. I would love to see more history. And I emailed him back and I said, oh, thank you so much, Mr. Guzzaldo. We actually are going to add another day of history, or we're going to have history every week next year. And he was like, I'm so happy to hear that. So we had this nice little back and forth. Little did I know I'd be working with him very closely in the coming years. So
little did I know.
It's so great. So that was nice.
One fact that Nicole's leaving out is not only did she email me back, but she emailed me back like 10 minutes after I submitted the survey, which told me, like, man, this place is squared away. They're just on top of.
Yeah, we really do read those surveys with bated breath. Like, as they're all coming in, I'm like, my brain's firing with ideas. And I mean, the parents are the backbone of the program, we're homeschool families through and through. Like the parents are back, we know they're behind the scenes doing the hard work of making their kids sign on to class or do the work. So I really enjoyed hearing from you when you were a parent and knowing that, you were thinking about what would be best for your daughter and communicating it. So it was great.
Okay, we'll take note. Fill out the surveys. That's good. Are there other ways that we can improve our interactions with you guys?
I think that we talk about parent partnership a lot. And I think it's not just what parents can do more to connect with us, but just us learning too, the kind of support that parents need in time and being able to work on that and communicate it. So I know, especially in launching the K-5 program, understanding that almost, all the parents in our program, they want to be a part of their child's education. That's why they chose Kolbe. They want to be a part of it. But sometimes they don't feel like they have the tools, or they're not really sure what their role should be or how they should be involved. And so that's been something I've been really working on as director of K-5 is what tools can we give parents to better support their kids at home? What ways can we build that bridge between teachers and parents so they feel like they're in partnership working together for their child's success? And how can I facilitate that communication and that goal? And so when I took this job, that was one thing I communicated, that my favorite part of being a teacher was getting to know families. I loved it in brick and mortar, and I found that it still existed, and I loved it at Kolbe too, of, I'd have sibling after sibling and really get to know them. So that's something that I really wanted to focus on in this role, and I'm still continuing to grow in what that looks like.
We have had a couple of episodes on the elementary grades. I will be sure to link those in our show notes, and those do go into more detail about how those grades in particular can work with the online teachers and set up their spaces at home and put some things in place to have success using the program in the elementary grades. So it looks like there are opportunities for more to join in this mission. Megan, do you want to talk about any of those opportunities?
Yeah, sure. So we have a couple of openings for faculty members next year. We have a couple of openings in the theology department, as well as math and science. And we have one or two classes in middle school English, but otherwise English and Lit, we don't have too many openings really. Okay. And history, I almost forgot history. So we have a couple of openings in middle school history, as well as high school history, the humanities classes. And then we are also hiring academic advisors as well in the academic services department. So anybody interested, both part-time and full-time. Nicole, is in her department, K-5, we are hiring a first grade teacher and a kindergarten teacher. So both part-time. We have two teachers in each grade level for K1 and 2. And so we have one first grade teacher right now, one that moved down to kindergarten for next year. And so we have an opening in each of those grades, K and 1.
Okay. Well, once again, in our show notes, we'll have a link to where you can get that process started for applying for these open positions and learning more about working at Kolbe. There's a lot of information there. Enrollment is open for the summer and 2022-23 school year. That is hard to say. And so we will.
It really is.
There's got to be a better way. So we will link to that as well. There are ways to both contribute to the cost of education and also benefit from the financial assistance program that Kolbe has in place. Stephen, do you want to say a few words about that before we go?
Yeah, first, I guess I'd like to put in a plug for the families if you haven't tried out the online program or haven't given it or tried it a while ago and it just didn't seem to fit. I recommend there's lots of different ways you can get involved with it. So whether it's like the homeroom, which we've had a podcast about talking to some of the homeroom teachers, or just the classes as well. And this is my son's first year in a Kolbe online class, and he was in a History 10 honors course with Dr. Hasler. And at first, we jumped in and thought, this is intense, but to see the growth as he's learned to kind of discipline himself, do the readings on time, get everything done on time, and be proactive with that has been really impressive to me. And again, like we're talking about, these teachers are amazing people, and so it's fun just to have him get to know Dr. Hassler as a teacher and be exposed to him. And I'm really looking forward to having him have Mr. Sens next year for that as well. So I would encourage people to give it a try. And I know we're coming up on financial aid just like the next week after this podcast is going to come. And a lot of those are for people who have recognized that they could really use an online class or some of the online classes. And sometimes it is really essential for the families to be successful, to be able to get into some of these courses, to have the extra help. So, if you're out there and you've had the classes and you love them, like I've come to love them, then if you can support some of these other students, that would be great. Or if you think I really need this, and but it's hard for you to fit it in that budget, I mean, again, reach out to me or reach out to your advisor. Let us know, or apply for financial aid directly on the site, whatever. Let us know. Maybe, hopefully the generous families that we have will be able to help support that and get those students in.
That has not come up here before, so we wanted to make sure to highlight that is available. And there are other ways to support Kolbe that haven't come up either that I thought we would mention. There is Amazon has a program called Amazon Smile, where you can designate a recipient of a portion of your Amazon purchases. Kolbe is a part of that program, and we will include information on how to designate Kolbe as your recipient in Amazon Smile. You can also receive employer matching gifts and one-time or monthly contributions. So there will be information about all that in the show notes. We'll have lots of stuff there, so check that out. I always enjoy celebrating the teachers and administration and staff at Kolbe. I'm so grateful for what Kolbe has done for our family, and it's always a privilege to be able to share that with our listeners and to highlight all the good work happening where people can see it and behind the scenes as well. So thank you all, Tony, Megan, and Nicole, for coming to visit with us today. And we look forward to working with you guys going forward and seeing all the good that's yet to come. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, pray for us. Ad Maiorum Dei Gloriam.